Bettina Warburg is co-founder of Animal Ventures, a startup studio supporting Fortune 500 executives with emergent technologies, focusing on blockchain, AI, and IoT.
If we think back to when we were hunter-gatherer economies, we really just traded within our village structure. We had some informal constraints in place, but we enforced all of our trade with violence or social repercussions. As our societies grew more complex and our trade routes grew more distant, we built up more formal institutions. Institutions like banks for currency, governments, corporations. These institutions helped us manage our trade as the uncertainty and the complexity grew, and our personal control was much lower. Eventually, with the internet, we put these same institutions online. We built platform marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, Alibaba.
But we're actually changing yet again. And now, instead of relying on these traditional institutions, even the digital ones, we've actually created a technology that does the exact same thing. It lowers our uncertainty about one another, but instead of using an institution or a middleman to do this, we're actually using blockchain technology. But we've actually already evolved past this original architecture. Bitcoin functioned much more as a tool for these more financial transactions. We've created newer blockchains like the Ethereum network and others that actually generalize this infrastructure.
Blockchain is a new network, and it's going to help us decentralize trade, allowing us to do a lot of our transactions much more peer-to-peer directly and lower our use of intermediaries like companies or banks maybe.
Today, in blockchains, we're seeing a proliferation of application experiments. People are starting to try different proofs of concept to imagine how we can use a decentralized infrastructure to run software.
I'm glad you mentioned initial coin offerings because for me those really exemplify the sort of the problem that we're having at this exact moment. They are an idea with enormous potential significance down the road. However, the promise of the initial coin offering has been kind of hijacked into this string of basically pump and dump scams or sort of desperate gold rush schemes. The faster that we can shift from this fantasy that it is going to make you rich in a sort of 1920s tulip bubble kind of way, is the sooner that we can get into people, honestly, and I mean this with all the hope in the world, people being disappointed in blockchain. It's like, oh, I didn't get rich. It's just being used now to make it easier to transact goods and services safely across borders. This isn't exciting at all. And then we'll see that become part of the everyday infrastructure of the world in a way that I think will be very significant. But I think it is now almost every aspect of it that's connected with the concept of money is wildly overhyped.
And it also creates a problem, which is people get a lot of excitement around it, and then they're waiting for the world to change, right? Where is this technology? Why haven't I seen anything change yet? And it's because we've had a lot of PR, a lot of proof of concept, but truthfully, this is more like a science, right? It will develop, it will take 5 years, it will take 10 years. That kind of time is necessary.
But there are tons of people working on this, from financial institutions to technology companies, startups, and universities. And one of the reasons is that it's not just an economic evolution. It's also an innovation in computer science. My lab is pretty much focused on going the enterprise and government route first.
But a lot of companies and consortiums are getting together to build private blockchains, so ones that are more closed off at first and then may evolve into a public network when people feel comfortable using it. And some are also proof of concepts out in the real world, projects in energy and in pharmaceuticals and in retail and lots of different fields are starting experiments. And we'll see in the next few years how all of those interact and what we learn about the best use cases for blockchain. Is the fact that we're not just going to see blockchain emerge, we're going to see artificial intelligence continue to evolve, we're going to see connected devices and this sort of growing Internet of Things, machinery that can do a lot more and have a wallet and transact on their own. sure. A lot of the assumptions won't hold true. Same with who are the actors. It's not just people anymore, it's machines.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to create entire new concepts of how they do trade and how they work with us too.
I think this is one of the most exciting ways that blockchains lower our uncertainties, because it means to some degree we can collapse institutions and their enforcement. It means a lot of human economic activity can get collateralized and automated, and push a lot of human intervention to the edges, the places where information moves from the real world to the blockchain. So I think we need to start preparing ourselves, because we're about to face a world where distributed, autonomous institutions have quite a significant role.
And I don't want you to think that I'm describing this as a better future, because I'm actually not. I'm describing it as inevitable. I'd like to steal Kevin Kelly's term on that, which is basically he argues different technologies have different biases. And a lot of the technologies we have today are in fact biased toward decentralization, which means even if we don't think it's a better future, it may in fact just be inevitable that we start to unwind a lot of these older paradigms of trade or of how we get things done and do business. And so we all need to take on this idea of learning and unlearning in order to start to thrive in a decentralized economy. Humans aren't the only ones who are going to need to learn and unlearn. We're going to be paired with machines and organizations in very new ways to create and drive value together. So I know this is a lot, and it sounds maybe like I am describing a better future, or I think it's better. And I don't actually think that, but I do think it's inevitable. It's inevitable in the same way that our inevitability was to transfer from being agrarian types of people to having a totally globalized trade system. It's inevitable in the same way that we went from globalized trade via institutions to digitizing all of that activity. So blockchain is this next inevitability. It's unlocking a much more decentralized way for not only humans to do business with each other, because we can automate a lot of those rudimentary business structures. But we can actually leverage that for machines to do business and for humans and machines to work together. So I hope you'll think about how you're going to be an artist, scientist in this future decentralized economy. Thank you so much.